The Logitech G29 and G920 have become synonymous with sim racing for their good value for money and inexpensive nature. However, they are now around 6 years old, and Logitech has since released a new model, the G923, which although looks very similar from the outside, has some internal upgrades. But is it worth the $150 difference, and should you choose it over the previous models? Let's find out. One very quick note before I get started, I've made separate, far more in-depth reviews on both of these wheels, and you can find links to those in the video description. This video will be more of a comparison than anything else and won't necessarily go deep into the specifics of these products. Also, I paid for both of these myself, and this video hasn't been paid for and is not influenced by Logitech in any way. Alright, let's get started. From a design perspective, the new G923 is identical to the previous G29 in nearly every way. The wheel features the same rim, same buttons, dials, and D-pad, same paddle shifter, same wheelbase, etc. The pedals also look exactly the same. The main difference is that the new model has a more modern look to it since it features a matte black colorway, whereas the old models have a little bit more color to them. The G923 also has TrueForce printed on its wheelbase, which I'll talk about soon. Finally, the PlayStation logo in the center cap of the G29 has been replaced with the Logitech G logo, which has also been updated on the pedals. But in essence, nothing has changed from a design perspective, which is a little disappointing, but I guess Logitech has taken the "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" approach. So what is new? Well, the G923 has some new features as well as some notable upgrades. The biggest update is what Logitech calls TrueForce. To put it as simple as possible, basically the wheel recognizes audio frequencies from the game and makes the wheel vibrate accordingly in order to add immersion and mimic the feel of a car. So for example, on track, if you put your wheels on the rumble strip, the wheel will vibrate accordingly to emulate that feel. From my experience, I've actually enjoyed the sensation. Now, it's not anything out of this world, but it does add to the overall immersion, and I'm very surprised no other wheel manufacturer has implemented this type of technology on their products, at least not that I know of. I should also note that TrueForce by no means improves your performance in game, nor makes you faster, it kinda just feels cool. The G923 also has a dual clutch software integrated on the wheel. Now, this has nothing to do with the actual wheel itself, as it doesn't feature dual clutch pedals or anything like that. Basically, it just allows you to control the clutch bite point when launching the car to, in theory, limit wheel spin and allow you to get a quicker start off the line. In a way, this gives you an advantage over other players as you will technically have quicker starts, but only if you figure out how to use it, because from my experience, it's been quite the hassle. Most notably for me, the biggest upgrade over the older version has got to be on the brake pedal. While the previous G29 and G920 were notorious for having a very stiff brake, which always made it hard to be consistent with, the G923 has an updated spring somewhere in there that makes the braking feel progressive when pushing it down and provides the same resistance throughout. Interestingly enough, they seem to closely mimic the feel of my $200 load cell pedals. The gas and clutch pedal, however, are exactly the same as the old models. Now, some of you all might have noticed that I haven't talked about the force feedback yet, which is by far the most important part of any sim racing wheel, and that's because there seems to be no difference between them. The G923 features the same motor as the previous models, which means it offers no difference in the overall capability in force feedback, which is both incredibly disappointing as well as surprising considering the price difference. The wheel did, however, seem to react a little quicker than the previous models, but that just might be due to the fact that I haven't used it for nearly as long. So the answer you've all been waiting for, is the Logitech G923 worth the upgrade from the older G29 and G920? Not if you ask me. First things first, the G923 is an upgrade from the previous G29 and G920, and yes, it's better than those wheels as it has a few more features and some notable upgrades. However, it also retails for $400, which is significantly more than the $250 price point of the G29 and G920, and for the money, you get a better deal with the older models. You literally get the same leather wheel, the same metal pedals, the same force feedback capabilities, and the same performance in game. The G923 features TrueForce, which is cool but only compatible in a handful of games, the dual clutch software, which is not as cool but also only compatible in a handful of games, and an upgraded brake pedal, which in my opinion isn't enough to justify the price difference over the G29 and G920. And if you are willing to spend around $400 for a sim racing wheel, you're far better off looking at the Thrustmaster T300 RS and other belt-driven wheels, which provide far superior force feedback capabilities at around the same price. Anyway, I hope that answered your questions and any doubts you may have had. If you enjoyed the video or it brought any value to you, a like would be appreciated as it helps this video get seen by more people. And if you are into all types of self-proclaimed high-quality sim racing content, consider subscribing to my channel as that's what I do. Anyways, feel free to leave any questions, comments, or concerns down below, and remember to check out the separate reviews I made on these products if you're interested in learning more. As always, thank you all for watching, stay safe, and as always, have a fantastic rest of your day.